If you would please sort of come back into the circle here, we're going to talk about Essencework before we break for dinner, and then after dinner, we're going to come back and talk about why it's so difficult to express your love and be loved, why it's so complicated sometimes. So, one of the beautiful things about what Michelle just did with you is that even though she told you not to coach each other, it's one of the things that we do as coaches. We create a safe space for people to talk about their feelings. And when people talk about their feelings, they open up and they become more vulnerable and they access more energy than they would otherwise have. And we also build a trusting relationship with them. And that also helps us to see them as they really are. And so the more people feel open and vulnerable to talk about what they're truly feeling, the more we can see their essence, the more we can see their natural way of being in the world that adds value. So I want to just talk for a minute about essence, and then we're going to do some work around essence to help you see it more clearly. I said that the essence of coaching from Essence is this conviction that everybody has a natural way of being in the world that's valuable without any real thought or effort on their part. Now, when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Think about the people you most despise in the world. Those are the people most in need of your love. Because those are the people who are most estranged from their natural way of being in the world that's valuable. If you see someone who is hurting another person, you can be sure that that person is in pain. Because no one intentionally hurts another human being unless they're in pain. So everyone has a natural way of being in the world that's valuable. The aim of coaching from Essence is to be able to navigate form, to be able to use your essence and then create form. So one of the things when we're trying to understand someone's essence or even our own essence, one of the most common distinctions that people don't sort of identify or clearly understand is the difference between form and essence. Form is everything you can see, touch, feel, sense, but it's also your thoughts. Your thoughts are thought forms, and they're the most insidious, deceptive, in some ways dangerous forms, because we believe them as if they were forms, as if they were sort of, tangible and indestructible and so forth. And so we'll talk more about that. But when you're looking at someone and trying to understand their essence, or when you're thinking about creating something, and you want to create something that reflects your essence, you have to hold form loosely. Hold it lightly. You're not creating form. I mean, you are creating form, but your intention is to create something that reflects your essence. So when you look at a person, if you look at me, every time I look in the mirror, I just go, what? But if you look a little deeper and you see something about my essence, you'll see that there's something here that maybe is reflected a little bit in my form, but it's not about my form, right? Or Michelle's, or yours if you look around the room. So we're going to do a little exploration of essence. And one of the best ways to understand essence is, first of all, understand that essence is a relationship you have with yourself. There are lots of tools that you can use to understand personality. There's Myers-Briggs, you can do Strengths Finder, and there's all kinds of tools, and those have value, but they're not essence. They might get at personality. Personality is, essence is not personality. I think of essence maybe as a subset of personality. You'll get clues about your essence from those kinds of instruments, but personality, a lot of personality is also learned. Part of it is your adaptations to your environment. It's solutions to problems that no longer exist. It's all different kinds of things. Essence is innate. It's natural. It's effortless. And so essence is not personality. It's not purpose. Some people think you come into the world with one purpose. Some people may. Personally, I think a lot of us come into the world with multiple purposes, multiple callings. We're called multi-potentialites. Somewhere, I forget the name of the person, but there's a TED Talk you can watch. I would venture to say that most people in this room, if not all of us, are multi-potentialites. We have multiple callings, multiple interests, multiple purposes. So essence is not purpose. Essence is a way that we pursue those purposes. It's not your priorities or your values. You can have different priorities. You can make something more important to you, but that doesn't necessarily reflect your essence. Essence is not your passions. You can have lots of passions that have nothing to do with your essence. I'm passionate about music, but there's nothing in my essence about music other than enjoying it. Okay? So to understand what essence is, you have to understand what it's not. The other thing is, a good way to understand what essence is to just sort of compare and contrast. So when I am working with someone and I think of their essence, I think, well, how are they different from other people? Like, what is it that really stands out? Or when I'm working with a team, I'll often talk to the team about, so what do you notice about people? What's different about you? I mean, aside from using a Myers-Briggs or something like that, I'll just say, I'll ask two people, like, how do you think they're different? And sort of everybody can have some kind of intuition about that. So if, for example, I asked you, all of you know me fairly well. Some of you know Michelle pretty well because you've met her on other occasions. And even if you never met Michelle before this weekend, you have now had some experience of her. So what would you say about Michelle's essence? And what would you say about my essence? You can see that I think you can see that we're a little different, right? Hopefully complementary. I think we're very complementary, but our essence, our sort of natural way of being is a little bit different. How would you describe what the difference is?
Putting them on
and
the
you can
spot.
you can just shout it out. Zoe.
Michelle feels more like a watercolor, and you feel more like precision drawing.
Oh.
Not super precise. There's still a little, but more precise than watercolor. Yeah.
Great. I love that. That's a way of sort of describing, the feeling of it. That's great. Thanks, Sovik. Yeah, Zeke.
Butterfly and tree.
Butterfly and tree. These are great. I love that.
Glad
Thanks.
this is being recorded. This is good.
Thanks, Zeke. Isabel.
Michelle feels, sorry, Lauren, more approachable.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I would say Michelle is emotionally revealed, more emotionally revealed, whereas you have your emotions, but they're perhaps not as revealed.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Greg. What else? What would you say? So I appreciate that some of what you're describing is, I would say, kind of an energetic, which is part of essence, one way to sort of get at it. What would you say, how would you describe sort of, again, essence is more like a way of being that's useful. How would you describe the way she shows up in the world, or I show up in the world, or how we approach things?
I think if you go away from the compare and contrast, I think that becomes misleading because then you just have to stick with that. But
Yeah, you don't have to stick with
Essence
that.
here.
Sometimes that's helpful just because you can see how someone is different. If you think about the differences, it can help you. But
I think Michelle is like a parent and a child at the same time.
I like it.
Great, thank you.
I like it.
Sana.
I think Michelle, having this bodily intelligence that Leno is looking at her presenting, it shows up so naturally and helps with the presentation and the delivery. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Sana. And feel free to lower your mask when you speak. It's easier to hear.
The other thing I know is she's free-spirited.
Okay, great. What else?
following the sequence, I think Michelle, you just flow. You just kind of flow through the dancing, you're like in you're in a dance of the world. Okay.
Nice.
It's so
Thanks, Doug.
nice.
Janet.
I experienced both people as incredibly curious.
Yes. Thanks, Janet. Zovik.
Along the lines of both. I experienced both of you as an invitation. Different, to me, slightly different than host, but as an invitation, but it just looks different.
Great.
Expressed differently, but both very much an invitation.
Great, thanks for that. And so noticing the different way that it's expressed, again, some of that is form, right? It just shows up differently, but there's both sort of a natural way of inviting people or a natural way of being curious. It shows up a little differently in each of us, but there's part of that is in both of us, right? Yeah.
With your mind and think more with Michelle's part, otherwise I think with both of them.
Great, thanks, Gurmit. Okay, so, yeah, Vanessa.
I experienced from you, Robert, like unruffled. Like a steadiness. Like let me take that in, like a groundedness. I think the tree was good. And I mean, really, I would say you're more ruffly, for sure, Michelle. And there's like a flutteriness, a floatiness. And I mean, I think all of those are kind of...
Great, thanks. So, do you see how, without a model or a framework or anything, you can sort of intuit, you can just sense that there's some, you can kind of sense the way somebody shows up. When you are listening to a client will tell you, this is one of the reasons why I love letting clients tell their stories. Even though we may not do anything with the story, I'm listening for their essence. I'm listening, tomorrow I'll talk about levels of creation. I'm listening for their identity, how they see themselves, their beliefs and so forth, but I'm listening for their essence. Something will always come out about what they really care about or their way of approaching something, and you listen for that, okay? And you can see it, you can sort of sense, you can feel it. Sometimes it sort of starts with an energetic feeling, and then the more you think about the way that person shows up, you can start to articulate it a little bit more clearly. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to do some reflection on what you know about your own essence. And again, the way I think of essence is it's like a relationship that I have with myself. I don't fully know myself. I love Michelle, but I don't fully know Michelle. There are times when I look at Michelle and I think, oh, I feel like I've known you forever. And then there are times when I look at Michelle and I think, oh, who are you? Just like this total mystery beside me. I'll never really know Michelle. I mean, I know Michelle, but I'll never really know Michelle. I know myself, but I don't feel like I know all there is to know about myself. I'm still on a journey of self-discovery. And so essence is a relationship I have with myself. And I want it to be a good relationship. And so I try to pay attention to it, and I try to listen to it and respect it and honor it. Some of us don't even think about our essence. We don't know about our essence. And even if we do, it's hard for us to get in touch with it because it's transparent. Remember, it's something that you do naturally without any thought or effort on your part. So it can be hard to see. The other thing is because it comes so effortlessly, we often don't value it. It's like, oh, you get a compliment for who you are and you say, oh, what. We discount it because it comes so effortlessly to me. I remember when I was growing up, my father used to sort of had this attitude. We weren't Protestant, but he had sort of this Protestant work ethic. Like if you didn't have to work at something, it wasn't valuable. So if something came easily, it wasn't valuable. There were certain things that came easily to me, but I didn't appreciate them because I thought they weren't that valuable since I didn't have to work at it. So this conversation that you have with yourself and with your clients is about really respecting and valuing and appreciating and bringing your curiosity to your essence. Okay? So I have some prompts for you, and I'm going to give you just a few minutes to do some rapid journaling on your essence. And then, rather than do a sort of a partner share, because you can do that in your conversations over dinner and so forth, I'd like to have a few more people come up in front of the room and for us to just see what we see in your essence, because that's the exercise that we're doing here, is to learn how to listen for and look for and see and appreciate the essence that people bring to how they show up in the world. And then you can also write write some messages for people, what you see about their essence now that you've had an opportunity to work together. As we go through the rest of the weekend, this might prompt you to think about how you might express what you see in somebody else. Okay? So before we do that, what questions do you have? Oh, yes, Jeremiah.
Is that basically what's left over when you remove form?
Wow, that's an interesting way to put it. Short answer, yes. Long answer, there's more to that. But yes, essence is not form. Essence needs form to show up in the world. We live in a world of form. You can't see essence without form. Okay, does that help?
I mean, yeah, you talk about it like people talk about the Tao.
About the Tao? Yeah.
It's like very...
Yeah, in some ways, there's a lot of nuance to this. If you want to talk about what seems to be happening for me, the more I bring my curiosity to this, is that if you want to look at it sort of beneath essence, there's nobody there. There's really nobody there. I mean, what I was trying to convey in the bedtime story last night, which was just a fun way of trying to communicate something that I actually do think is very important, is that we live in a world of form. And we create what form means. There really are no rules. Like, we decide what things mean. And who we are is actually a social convention. Like, there is no Robert Ellis here, really. It's a social convention. We talk about it as if we're real so that we don't bump into each other. And you don't mistake me for her. But we're really I don't want to get into this too deeply now, because this is a much deeper conversation. But that's the short answer. Yes, there's a lot of nuance if you want to take it deeper. Brandon.
Are you able to share how you could describe your essence and maybe the stories of how you came to get ordained?
Yeah. I'll give you a very short version of that. Part of it is, I think I always kind of knew what my essence was. I had very clear tropisms when I was a kid. I was very strongly drawn to understanding certain things. I had a lot of curiosity as a kid. I had a lot of sort of pattern recognition or interest in making connections of ideas. I was very much interested in ideas and otherworldly ideas. If you look at my picture, that's why it's fun to kind of look at kid pictures, because often you can sort of glimpse it there. I was always very thoughtful and always, curious and looking for connections and wanting to understand things, and especially people, and especially why we're here. From the time I was 14 or 15, I was reading P.D. Ouspensky and stuff. So,
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
You're my...
One of the things I would say about Robert that is so consistent from his whole life story is that he has always been this real seeker. From the time he was 16 and quit high school and wrote a 4 or 5 page essay to his parents, which I have read, his diatribe about why he was quitting high school and why it was a waste of his time to go to school. But he had these really strong thoughts, these really powerful thoughts about what it meant to be a human being and what it meant to look for purpose and meaning in many different ways. And that was already there, and maybe that was couched at the time in a 16-year-old's vocabulary. And not so much, he had a big vocabulary, but a 16-year-old's mind. But it was there. It was the same person that has gone onward. Robert let me read his diaries at one point, his diaries that spanned a couple of decades, because he was always a big writer. He was always writing and thinking and writing and thinking. And through all of it, the thing that is consistent, he was always looking. He was always looking for more meaning, looking for ways to think about it, looking for ways to wrap his head around what the meaning of life is and how that connects to other people. And for so much of his life, I would say he did that all internally. And I think the magic of the last years is that he has brought it out of himself and has learned how to really use it not just to save himself, but to really give as a gift to others. I'm going to get all weepy just telling that story.
I'm going to get all weepy. Thank you for that. I mean, do you see now why I love this woman so much? I mean, I can't remember how long it was in our relationship, but I made a commitment when I met Michelle for coffee at the Copperfield bookstore or whatever in San Francisco, I think that's what it was. I had made a commitment to myself. I was going to go on these dates, and I made a commitment that I was going to show up as myself, so that if I met someone and we fell in love or thought we fell in love, we wouldn't wake up 3 months or 6 months later and look at each other and say, "You're not who I thought you were." I wanted her to really see me. But it took a while before I really trusted her, but then I thought, I really love this person. I want to be with this person the rest of my life. And so she's the only person in my life that I've shared my journals with. Decades of journals. And believe me, I mean, when I was going through my darkest days, things that I wrote that were intended to be kept secret and burned, when I died. And just the most embarrassing, vulnerable, just me at my weakest, ugliest, worst. And she read all of it, and she flagged a lot of things that we never got back to. But at the end of it, the thing that I most remember that she said was, you were writing about what you're doing now 20 years ago. What took you so long? And what took me so long was that
We're just going to sit up here and cry.
I never believed that what I had to offer was really worth anything. And I never believed that the world would support me. It was my love threshold. And that's why this work is so important to me, because every one of you can create an amazing life for yourself and contribute so much to others if you just get out of your own way. It's in there. It's not there's not a person over there that you have to make a journey to get to that person. That person is right here. It's in this room. It's your essence. And you just need to have the courage to express it in the world and risk that some people won't value the value that you have to offer. But some people will, and you just have to find those people. And I found you. So thank you for that. I forgot what I was supposed to be answering.
Your essence.
My essence. So yeah. So very, very quickly.
Now you saw his essence.
Very quickly, I had a sense of it when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of appreciation. I was in an environment that didn't have a lot of appreciation for my essence. My father didn't understand it, and he didn't really appreciate it. And my mother understood it better and appreciated it more. And I don't mean this as a criticism of my father. We'll talk a lot more about all of this tonight, but he didn't understand it, so he couldn't understand the value of it. And so I did a lot of things to try to solve the problem that didn't exist. I did a lot of things to try to make my father love me when my father already loved me. He just didn't understand me. He didn't know how to support me because I was so different from him. He already loved me, but I did all these things to try to win his love that I didn't have to do. And I think to some extent, most of us, if not all of us, do that. And so finally I stopped doing that. You know, I've shared this story in the book. Someone once, I was talking to someone, having a conversation, we were talking about our fathers, and the guy said to me, you know, your father's dead. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, no, your father is dead. I said, yeah, I know. He died in 1976. He said, no, your father is dead. You don't have to make him proud of you anymore. You can stop doing all the things you think you need to do to make your father proud of you that aren't you, and you can just start being yourself now. And that was a really liberating conversation. That was a good coaching conversation. Okay? Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. I have one of my handful of slides. I'd like you to do just some rapid journaling for a couple of minutes on these questions. What is the thread that runs through all of the things you've ever done? When you were being your best self, who are you being? What do your friends come to you for? Or what do they say about you? And what were you like as a kid? What would make you cry, frustrate you the most? By the way, Brandon, part of the clarity for me came from Hive. So I know Brandon from this leadership conference, and Jesse and Alex, we were all group leaders for this workshop, Hive. When I went through it the first time as a participant, part of the workshop is finding your purpose and expressing your purpose. And you had to come up with a purpose statement, and at the end of the workshop, there were usually about 100, 125 people in the workshop. At the end of it, we would get in this one huge circle, and you'd have to go in the center of the circle with the microphone and say, "This is my purpose," which was pretty terrifying. And so we're struggling in our small groups, and I couldn't figure out my purpose, and some woman said to me, "I can't figure out my purpose. Can you help me?" And I said, "Sure, I'd rather help you than try to figure out myself." And so I just asked her. She was telling me all these things. She had all of these different experiences, and I said, what is the thread that runs through all of these things that you've done? I don't know where that question came from. It was one of those things where I didn't know I knew it. And so after I helped her, I looked at my own life, and I thought, what is the thread that runs through everything I've ever done? I have sold cars, new cars, not used. I've never been a used car salesman. I have been a talent manager. I've managed a rock band and a disco band. I've sold cameras. I've done personal growth workshops. I've done, all kinds of things. When I looked for the thread that ran through it, what the thread was is whatever I was doing, I was always trying to help people get whatever it was they wanted. I'm really good at helping people create what they want. Now, that isn't exactly an essence. It's not exactly a purpose either. It's maybe somewhere in there. The essence is, how do I do that? And I think I do that with a certain kind of curiosity, a certain way of bringing ideas together. I think I'm a natural translator. I like to take complicated ideas and make them simple and things like that. So those are examples of what I mean by essence. So take a few minutes and do some rapid journaling about your own answers here. So if you're still writing, please feel free to continue to write. So we're going to do some short essence interviews. And what I mean by that is I'm going to ask for a couple of people to come up here, and the group is just going to ask you some questions. The same kinds of questions that you would ask a client to get at their essence. So if you engage someone in an essence conversation and you share this idea with them and they say, "Oh, well, what do you mean by essence, and what do you think my essence is?" You can have a way of facilitating that conversation. When I have that conversation, I'll say something like, "Well, think about all the things you've ever done. What was the thread that ran through that? How are you showing up regardless of where you were and what the form was? How did you approach? Tell me some things you did before what you're doing now. Oh, okay. How did you do that? When you were being your best self, when you were the happiest and you felt like you were living the life you loved, as close to it as you've ever been, or what you were doing, the work that you were doing and the life you were living felt most resonant, felt like it matched who you were so much. What was that like? What was it about? What was it about that was so resonant for you, that matched you? What did it let you express? You can ask the reverse question. When you were so unhappy, when you were the most miserable in a job or a relationship, what was it that was so frustrating and unsatisfying about it? Because that's often their essence was stifled in some way. Okay? So there's lots of questions that we can ask. These are some that can be helpful, but lots and lots of questions that we can ask. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some essence interviews. So I need a couple of volunteers. Okay. I saw Tatiana's hand first, and how about Sahai? So you two come up. And okay. Yes, please take off your mask. If you're more comfortable sitting a little further apart, just make yourselves feel good. So what I want you to do is, so we're just going to try to feel these people and see them. And we're going to just ask them some questions, and you're going to notice that the way they show up and the way they answer them is different. So if you call out a question, I'll just repeat it, and then you can take turns answering it. Okay? So if you wanted to know something about their essence, what could you ask them? What's a question you could ask? What creates joy for you?
Creating something new, imagining something that I think maybe nobody else imagined, and then making it.
The first thought is just being really present.
What's the second thought?
Beauty.
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 Okay. Great. Thank you. Another question. Yes.
What's a teeny tiny thing that drives you nuts? Like the more every day, the better. Like just something like when somebody leaves the door open or just makes you crazy.
A teeny tiny thing that drives you nuts. Something that makes you crazy.
One thing is, I don't know if this is a teeny tiny thing, but like when I am asked, like somebody on my team asks me exactly what they're supposed to do, I hate being told what to do, and it drives me crazy that anybody else would want me to actually tell them what to do. So that's maybe not a teeny tiny thing, but the teeny tiny thing is not pressing like stop on the microwave, so you just get like the blinking 22 seconds forever, and it just like drives me insane.
I enjoyed that. God, this sounds so bad, but like I can't think of a tiny thing that drives me crazy. I mean, like really the thing that came up for me was all of the unhomed people, which is not a small thing.
Okay, thank you. One thing just to notice, some of what you're hearing and seeing and feeling is, is I would say more about essence, and some of it might be about values. Some of it might be levels of creation. So just notice the distinction. By the way, always view this as a hypothesis. Like it's just like Michelle. Like I sometimes I think I know Michelle, and then I realize, oh, there's so much more there. I'm just beginning to really know Michelle. And even with myself, it's like, I don't know what's in there. I'm always trying to find more of my essence and give it expression. So we're just scratching the surface here. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Yes, Kermit. What makes you feel loved?
My first thought was when somebody smiles at me and I just feel their heart.
A very similar thing. When somebody that I don't know or just met will actually like meet my gaze and just authentically smile.
Great, thank you. Ernest.
What is something that is at the core of who you are, but most people don't know?
What's something that's at the core of who you are that most people don't know?
I have a lot of fear and guilt, like a lot of fear and guilt. I think most people, I've heard a lot of people say that I come off as fearless, but I actually know how to manage the fear in a way that it appears to be fearless.
Maybe the level of detail and criteria I have to accomplish almost anything.
Okay, thank you. Yes. What would you say are your greatest gifts?
I believe my greatest gifts are the ability to create links between different concepts and ideas, level of synthesis, and then creating sometimes really crazy and silly metaphors and being willing to share them with people, even if they sound really insane at first, but like metaphorical thinking and communicating those metaphors. And I think if anybody who's ever worked with me is watching this video, they will understand what I mean.
Now I want an example. Curiosity, listening, loving, being radically present.
Great. So I know this is a very small sample, and talking about someone's essence is never diagnosing them. I always let my clients know, if I see something that I think might be their essence, what I'll say is, look, here's some things that I heard. These might be clues to your essence. I don't know if they're your essence. Only you can decide that. But here are some things you might think about, or here are some things you might become more curious about, or something like that. So this is a very small sample, but if you just look at them, what would you say, how would you summarize what kinds of clues do you have about Tatiana's essence? Tatiana's essence.
Yes.
I have a sense that she has tropism towards playfulness, but also calling bullshit on stuff.
Playfulness and also calling bullshit on stuff is a natural way of being in the world that adds value. Can't help yourself. Does that fit for you?
100%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes.
I'm getting a sense of really that you're very honest and visionary.
Honest and visionary.
To a fault.
Okay. There's someone else I think had a hand up. No? Yeah. Vanessa.
Now I'm gonna cry. But Tatiana is, what I know about Nostrand today, is somebody who is available and accessible. She's worked in very inaccessible places and has been a bringer-inner. What I heard today was you believe another world is possible, and you believe that you can help create it and take us all there.
Thank you. You believe another. I'm trying to summarize that. Tatiana is here because of Vanessa, so they have a connection. Yes. What was that? Oh, half of you are here because of Vanessa. Yes. See, this is why you do pro bono work. I worked with Vanessa pro bono for a year because she was one of my first clients, and I had so much fun working with her, and I was learning so much that I didn't know I knew in all the conversations, and so I just kept working with her. And you never know, so just give, just serve the people who really show up. And Vanessa she was like a sponge, and then she would fight with me. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, how would you summarize Sahai's essence? What would you say about it? Yes. Sweet and funny. Yes. Oh, sweet and kind. I'm sorry. Loving and devoted. Does this resonate for you? Good. Yes. Open and receptive. Someone, yes.
I get the sense that you make everyone and everything okay.
You make
No one's wrong in front of you. You make everyone and everything.
You make everyone and everything okay. Yes. Sprightly. Sprightly and curious. Effervescent. Daniel. Compassionate. And reflective. Okay. How does that resonate for you?
Yeah,
So-
all of that resonates deeply for me.
So now I'm really curious, how did it feel to receive that? How did it feel for people to say what they saw in you and for it to resonate?
I really noticed it felt like having a wave of my own essence kind of come back to me, like this beautiful experience of being in a wave with myself.
Oh yeah, sorry, I felt it was very validating because the way that I would like to see myself is the way that I have been seen.
Great, thank you. So there's tremendous value in this conversation that you can have with someone. Part of the value, obviously, is to help them create something that matches their essence, to create a form that's big enough and spacious enough that they can bring more of themselves into their life. But the other part of it is this conversation is very validating. It can be healing. Just the power of having someone see you at your deepest self can be transformative. And so it's one of the most powerful things we do as coaches, to hold space for that and to recognize that and to be present for it with our clients and to say it, to speak it. Because again, for most people, it's transparent. They don't even know. They don't appreciate it because it's transparent. It's too easy for them. They don't value it. And then when you bring their attention to it, then they realize that that's where they were happy or that's where they were frustrated, and then they become really motivated to create something that matches it. Okay? So thank you. Thank you very much. So we have time for one more round. I need 2 more volunteers. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm having trouble understanding the difference between essence and value. Some of the things that we said, they're like values. I'm trying to pinpoint my essence, and the adjective that comes out smells very fishy like value.
So, yes, essence and values can be very similar and can look a lot alike. And the difference is a value is something that's a priority. It can change. You know, you can make something higher up your list of priorities. Something can be more or less important to you, but your essence, you can't help it. Okay, I forget what it was. Do you have, yes, please.
I was just going to say, it's a little bit like feelings and emotions. When we talk about them, it's a lot the same, but emotions are visceral, right? Emotions are visceral, like your essence is visceral. It's like, that's just there. Your feelings are influenced by other things. Your emotions are your data points, and your feelings have all the stories, et cetera. And I think that's a little bit the same thing with essence and values. So they're deeply connected, and some of the words might be the same in terms of how you use them, but your essence is just the core of who you are, and you can't help being that. And your values, they're often influenced by your family, by your culture, et cetera, et cetera. If that's helpful.
Yeah. Essence doesn't change. You can grow and you can get better at your essence. So like part of my essence, I'm pretty confident, is curiosity. Like I have insatiable curiosity. I can learn how to be better at curiosity. I mean, I think I have learned how to be better. Like I've learned what works for me in terms of gathering information and how I process and how I make connections and all of that. But that's not going to change. I will always be curious. I'm curious about dying. I want to know what the fuck is on the other side, okay? That's how curious I am, all right? I can't help it. I'm not in any hurry. Because I'm curious about a lot of things here. I haven't satisfied my curiosity here, but I am curious about it, so I can't help myself. But values can change. You know, at certain times of my life, I valued freedom. That wasn't my essence, but I valued freedom. I valued independence. Now I value relationship. You know, I don't care about being independent. I want to be in a relationship. Being in a relationship is sometimes letting myself be dependent, letting somebody else help me. That was really hard for me. But now I value it. I didn't value that before. Does that make sense? Thank you. Cookie, did you have a question? Okay. All right, great. We only have a few minutes left, so maybe we'll take some questions or... So it's dinner is 5:15. Okay. I was going to give you a little bit of a break. Do you want to do another round of Essence interviews? Okay. Who would like to be interviewed? I saw Ernest, and let's do... It's so hard because I want to do everybody, you know? I feel like Zovig, your essence is so, like it's just so right there. Zeke. Oh, Zeke could be interesting because Zeke is... Zeke, come on down.
Everybody could be interesting.
No, everybody could be interesting. Everybody can be interesting in a different way. But Ernest, yeah, sure, come on up. Well, one of the things that'll be interesting is you are two big dogs, and there's a lot of similarity. So it'll be interesting to see if we can sort of see the difference. Yeah, if you take your mask off, if you're comfortable. So this is what this is one of the things that really puzzles me. I wake up in the morning, I'm fucking freezing. I look outside, and there's Ernest in shorts. And I think, how, like, my essence, I have a very cold essence. So, okay.
You could have a couple of things happening because of that.
Yes, yes. But I mean, I've always been that way. I can't help it. Okay. So questions for Ernest and Zeke? Questions? Zovik.
What is the favorite story you have about yourself as a child?
Favorite story you have about yourself as a child, Zeke?
I have to think too. Okay. Well, the one image that comes to mind is me. Well, there's so many stories, but the one image that comes to mind is my friends came to the window of the apartment I used to live in, and I jumped out of the window to hang out with them. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
What age group? I don't know. I think I was like 7. I went fishing with my dad, and I caught my first fish, and I would not let it go for like 3 days while we were camping. I slept with it in my sleeping bag. Like, this was my friend. This was me. I caught this thing. And then my mom snuck it away from me.
That's great. Okay. Another question. Yes, Tatiana.
What's a job that pays well that you would hate?
A job that pays well that you would hate.
Good question. I can't do jobs. I tried to do it a few times, and I can't work for people. I had my last job. I was 18 years ago, and I tried working for someone on retainer in a similar kind of a situation. I can't. That failed very quickly, and so it doesn't matter what it is. I couldn't do it. I have to work for myself.
I'm going to go with you on this. This is why I'm self-employed. God, what was I thinking? Probably a stockbroker. It just seems too stressful. I'd lose my mind. It's too much up and down. I did car sales as well. Only lasted 6 months. Couldn't handle it.
Great, thanks. Another question. Yes, Greg. When you most feel in flow, what are you doing?
For me, it's usually some kind of an activity. And flow, if the first thing that popped into my mind was trail running. I'm not much of a runner, but I made myself run. And going in like a longer distance, like 5 or 10 kilometers on a trail, is where I come past this threshold where I have to stop thinking, where it's literally like I have to just keep going. And at that point in time, the mind and the ego and all of those kind of things fall away. And there's a specific thing that comes to mind. So I used to live in Alberta, Canada, and we have these beautiful mountains there. And so for me, there's this sense of awe when we go hiking, get to a vista, and you see these like the Rockies. And at that point in time, all of the other things fall away, and that's when I would feel presence, maybe less so than flow, but some of that would be present. If I think about flow, it's when I'm really into painting. I do some watercolor. And so if I'm able to let go of my own self-judgment about how good it's going to look at the end, then I'm able to just paint.
I guess I've had similar stories. For me, I think because I love pushing myself, and I always have, whether it's mental or physical, I think whether it's in the gym, if I feel super strong mentally and physically, I'm just in this flow of state where everything just kind of disappears, almost like that tunnel vision you kind of have. And then also like playing rugby, when I played rugby, it was like when everything was clicking and the team was clicking, and there's just a sense of flow there that you just can't, it's almost undescribable how that feels when you're kind of in that passion. I also feel it when I'm coaching a friend or working with men, like just things are clicking. I don't know what it is. It's just euphoric almost.
Great. Kermit.
What ruffles your feathers or makes you feel knocked off balance?
What ruffles your feathers or knocks you off balance?
So many things. Well, the one that specifically comes to mind in its many forms is when I have a plan and things then derail. It takes me a lot of mental effort to be, okay, things are going to change. It's okay. It's going to work out. Specific example, flying out here, our flight leaving the city that I was in to connect to the next connecting flight was a few minutes late. I'm like, well, damn it, I know how long the walk is going to be to get to the international terminal. I'm not going to make it. And so I was already flaring out, what happens if I don't get to San Francisco in time? And all of these other things kind of happen. So in various forms, if our kid, throws some kind of a thing that completely derails our plans, I'm like, oh, that just drives me nuts, for example.
I will say incompetency from others. Also, like, it's kind of an old school way of thinking. Gary and I were talking about this, but people not sticking to their word. If they say they're going to do something, or we're involved in something and they kind of drop the ball on that. I feel like that's all we kind of have in this world is our word, our handshake. I'm kind of old school like that, so that to me, that will ruffle my feathers. That will throw me off, because I'm like, hold on, I was relying on other people and them dropping the ball, I guess, and not saying anything. We can work together and fix it, but.
So this is a good example. I just want to make an observation here, right? You heard two different answers. Some of what you heard, we don't know. Remember, we need to maintain our curiosity. I don't know that I know anything about their essence. I have some ideas, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm right. Only they know. But I heard some things that could be personality. Like they could be, and when I say personality, what I mean is it's personality. I think of essence as a subset of personality, but personality also includes things that we've learned. Ernest, his planning might be essence, and it might be a good thing that Ernest is someone who can kind of figure out what has to happen, and maybe he brings that to everything he does, and that adds value. And maybe that's personality. Maybe that's something he's learned. Okay? And when other people are incompetent, might piss Zeke off. Is that essence? Is it personality, or is it values? He has values, maybe. He has high standards. Maybe it isn't essence, but if someone has a value of high standards, what might be their essence? Yeah, maybe precision or quality or, perfect, or just, pride, or like we could go on and on and on, right? So just understand the distinction. And all we're doing is having a conversation. We don't know. We're having a conversation and we're making all of this more conscious. But we have to be careful not to think that we really know what somebody's essence is, just because it can be interpreted in different ways. Okay. We'll take a couple more questions. Yeah. Jeremiah. If you got to have another life, what would be fun?
It's a tough question. If I got to have another life, what would be fun? I would probably do what I'm doing now sooner. I would probably that would be one thing that would be a big difference. And what would be fun? I don't even know. Like we had a whole conversation about this. There's a group that I'm in. I'm like, I don't even know. Fun is a kind of a strange concept to me now because I don't think about it that way. So that would be the first thing I would get to where I am faster.
Ernest, if you don't think about it that way, how do you think about it?
About fun? The first thing that comes to mind is like activities and stuff, right? And so it's I don't know. I don't relate to it as much.
Okay. Maybe his essence has something to do with activities. It might be a different way to say that. But maybe there's something there that he needs to be active. What kinds of activities?
If I think about through the lens of fun, it would be like hitting the gym, lifting weights, going for a trail run, doing something physically hard that's challenging that you have to like overcome it. I used to do MMA for a while. Like that was the stuff that I could feel was fully into, and that would be an example. Okay.
So that could be a clue. You're never going to hear me say it's fun to go out to the gym. Or MMA? No way, Jose. Mixed martial arts. Yeah, Daniel. Okay, you can, well, wait, Zeke has to answer the question, and then we'll summarize, because we do need to go to dinner.
That's a good one. Yeah. I'm gonna keep thinking on that, but I have lived an amazing life already. I will say, like everything I've gone through in my life. But if I look back and I was able to talk to that person, maybe a little younger, I would just have more patience and drop the expectations that I put on myself that wreck me. Yeah, those things, because I think that would allow me to have more fun in my younger years, instead of like, I'm going to retire by 30 and I'm going to do this. And, there was something else I was going to say, but yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I'm going to roll with that.
Who has a cookie?
What is the thing you love the most about yourself?
What is the thing you love the most about yourself? The thing you love most about yourself?
My resiliency. It doesn't matter what happens to me, I'm going to get back up. Or I will figure out a way, or I will go out of my way to help someone, no matter what. Even if I don't have the time or the energy or whatever else, it's my resiliency.
Thanks. My initial response in my mind was, I don't know. But the thing that came to mind after Zeke answered was that people can rely on me, and I'll be there when someone needs me. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Daniel, you have an idea of something you see about their essence. Yeah.
For me is, I got the sense that you might do men's work, and what I'm hearing is what I would call healthy masculinity as well.
Healthy masculinity, both of them.
Like powerful masculinity. That is like, if we're saying not values, like essence, I see healthy masculinity.
Okay, thank you. Kermit. You what? You can count on them, both. Okay, great. Vanessa.
So Ernest, I wrote, there's something around exploration that you long for, great, but then the relationship with expectations or outcomes, and you like the activities, you like the exploration, and then there's something that gets in the way of you actually fully expressing that, I think.
Or enjoying it.
Yeah, the planning, and then as for
Yeah. Oh.
so Zeke, how I've experienced you is definitely, I think you used the phrase spot on. It's this like precision, but you're also very open. There's a very wide range that's possible with you. And I've experienced it as very refreshing. It's like you're wide open, but then it's like you can laser in. Yeah.
So Vanessa said Zeke can be wide open and very precise. He can laser in, he can be intense. And Ernest, I'm not going to try to summarize it because I get it wrong. Do you want to just say it again? Exploration. Yes.
And going through things. You focus on the
Going through things.
Exploration's a big one. I love going off trail and going and hitting new things and going to new places. And there's a huge element of that.
Exploration is a good clue to essence, right? Because if you just can't help yourself from exploring, I mean, could be a value, could be learned, but that sounds more like essence, right? Zovik.
For Ernest, I think I'm getting storyteller.
Storyteller.
The way he answered the questions, there was a story. When we were sitting outside this morning, he was trying to like name things and summarize things and put fun titles on things. He was just like, he couldn't help himself. So like telling a story and using language. And with Zeke, I just get truth, like straight up, all day. Just truth. Like what you see is what you get. And you're going to hold to that truth. And I can trust. It's not just truth trust. Like, it's just so solid foundationally, truth, trust.
Truth, trust, solid foundation. And last comment, Isabel.
So, the biggest thing I see for both of you guys is
like you have this conversation with the relationship with your essence is you both wake up in the morning, what kind of impact I can make today? And
What kind of impact, for both of them, what kind of impact can they make today? Yeah. Okay. So I want you to notice that being coached by these two would be very different and equally powerful in different ways, right? We bring our essence every time we coach. And so the last thing I'd like to leave you with, something for you to reflect on, is now that you've kind of reflected on your own essence with these questions and you've sort of seen it, what's your essence as a coach? How do you show up? How do you bring your essence to your coaching? Okay? And so now we're going to break for dinner. Thank you. Thank you to our guests.